MSW Media.
News with swearing. Daily beans, daily beans. Daily beans, daily beans.
Hello and welcome to the Daily Beans for Tuesday, December 2nd, 2025. Today, it's Election Day in Tennessee's 7th Congressional District. Democrats have launched an investigation into Kash Patel's travel. After denying the second boat strike on September 2nd, killing 2 survivors, the White House is now admitting it. The White House has also released some fake MRI results for Donald Trump. The Third Circuit Court of Appeals has upheld the disqualification of parking lot lawyer Alina Habba, and Trump has issued 2 pardons. Well, 1 pardon and 1 commutation, one to a drug lord and another to a fraudster. I'm Allison Gill.
And I'm Dana Goldberg.
Happy Election Day, my friend.
Yes, happy Election Day. And oh my God, Tennessee 7. If you're, like we said, if you're anywhere near the district, anyone in the district, you know anyone in the district, if you're in the district, just go out and vote, please. It would be incredible to flip this 22-point swing from Trump winning in the last election. Let's show them really how pissed everybody is.
Yeah, wow, it would be incredible. And we'll bring you the results. Maybe not tomorrow, but maybe the next day, or we'll have late breaking results tomorrow that we try to shoehorn into the episode. You know how we do like break-ins, like we did on the Tuesday night when Democrats won everything within 20 minutes of polls closing. So we'll see what happens. And get out and vote. Also today, I'm going to be talking with Tarpley Hitt. She's written a book called Barbie Land, The Unauthorized History. There's so much in here I didn't know. And her book comes out today. It's going to make a great holiday gift for Barbie fans in your life. And we're going to speak to her. And we also have a couple of other things going on with the president's quote unquote health.
Yeah, Donald Trump's doctor, Allison, actually says the president had an MRI imaging, on his heart and abdomen in October as part of a preventative screening for men his age, quote unquote. That's according to a memo from the physician released by the White House on Monday. We know we can't trust any physician, in my opinion, that is saying the doctor, that the president is the most healthy they've ever seen anyone. Now, Sean Barbarella, great name, by the way, even if he's not a good guy, I don't know, he might be, said in the statement that Trump's physical exam included advanced imaging that is standard for an executive physical in Trump's age group. Now, Barbarella concluded that the cardiovascular and abdominal imaging, and I quote, was perfectly normal. How is that possible when you have admitted you have a circulation issue that is making your cankles swell up? Where do you think that blood comes from?
Yeah, and I'm sorry, but an MRI is not standard for an executive physical.
No, it is not.
Now, Trump said on Sunday that he has no idea what part of the body got the MRI. It was just an MRI, he said. What part of the body? He said it wasn't the brain, because I took a cognitive test and I aced it. So-called preventive cardiac and abdominal MRIs, again, not part of a routine screening. But I don't know. I hope his butthole explodes. I can't with this, because if he says it wasn't for his brain, then it has to have been for his brain. But this doctor is saying it was for his abdomen and heart, and that it was totally normal and part of a routine physical. Whatever. All right, everybody, we got a lot of news to get to. Let's hit the hot notes. Hot notes. All right, Dana, first up from NBC, the White House confirmed Monday that the U.S. did launch a second strike on an alleged drug boat from Venezuela in early September, and that it was ordered by Admiral Frank M. Bradley, who at the time headed the Joint Special Operations Command. The follow-up strike killed the survivors of an initial U.S. strike on the vessel, which the Trump administration has said originated from Venezuela. Some lawmakers and legal experts say that the second attack is a war crime. Quote, with respect to the strikes in question on September 2nd, Secretary Hegseth authorized Admiral Bradley to conduct these kinetic strikes. That's what White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt said in a statement during Monday's briefing. She went on to say Admiral Bradley worked well within his authority and the law, directing the engagement to ensure the boat was destroyed and the threat to the United States of America was eliminated. This is off the coast of Venezuela. Do you know how many places there are to go between there and the United States? Like, what makes you think?
Seriously.
And for that's not how we do it in interdiction. We stop the boat, we board the boat, we arrest the people, we prosecute the people if they have drugs. Now, on Sunday, President Trump told reporters that Hegseth did not order the second strike. He said he didn't do it. He said he didn't do it. That's what Trump said, who also said he didn't know if the second strike even happened. The president said he wouldn't have wanted it. Pete said he didn't want them. That's what he said. Asked again if there was no second strike, he said, I don't know. I'm going to find out about it. But Pete said he didn't order the death of those two men. But asked Monday what law the U.S. military relied on to justify the second strike, Leavitt said the strike conducted on September 2nd was conducted in self-defense to protect Americans in vital United States interests. The strike was conducted in international waters and in accordance with the law of armed conflict. Now, Leavitt's comments come amid widespread criticism and bipartisan investigations in the House and the Senate into the second boat strike. The leader of the Senate Armed Services Committee, Chairman Roger Wicker, that's whose name I was trying to think of on Beanstalk yesterday. He's a Republican from Mississippi, and ranking member Jack Reed, Democrat from Rhode Island, said in a statement Friday they're going to be conducting vigorous oversight. Similarly, leaders of the House Armed Services Committee, Mike Rogers, Republican from Alabama, and ranking member Adam Smith, Democrat from Washington, said they are taking seriously the reports on follow-on strikes on boats alleged to be ferrying narcotics in the Southcom region and are taking bipartisan action to gather a full accounting of the operation in question. Of course, Hegseth received backlash on social media after he posted on his personal Twitter account what appeared to be an AI-generated image of the children's book character Franklin the Turtle, with the title, Franklin Targets Narco-Terrorists.
Oh, my God.
It shows Franklin, a turtle, standing on the edge of a helicopter, aiming machine guns at boats. Actually, I think it's like one of those grenade, like shoulder short-guided missile rocket launchers, aimed at boats allegedly carrying drugs. So he posted that. He's admitted to all of it, and the White House is admitting to it after having denied it. And they told the Washington Post that the story about the second strike to kill the two men was absolutely fake news. But now they're saying, yeah, we did it, but we're allowed to do it.
God, why are they all such a fucking joke? I just unbelievable. All right, this one's from CBS, everyone. Speaking of fucking jokes, FBI Director Kash Patel's travel to watch his girlfriend sing at a Pennsylvania sporting event, well, that's now being investigated by the top Democrats on the House Judiciary Committee. Citing a series of recent media reports, the committee Democrats allege Patel has used the FBI's Gulfstream passenger jet for a series of recent flights for a date night in Tennessee and an outing with friends in Texas. The panel's Democrats have asked Patel to respond with travel records, passenger information, and any communication with passengers about recent flights. Rep. Jamie Raskin, the Maryland Democrat who is the ranking member of the House Judiciary Committee, and another committee member, that's Democrat Rep. Sidney Kamlager-Dove of California, wrote to the FBI to ask about Patel's October 25th flight to Pennsylvania. And I quote, "You flew there because your girlfriend was performing at a wrestling match on the campus of Pennsylvania State University." That's what they wrote in a letter. These are the Democrats. "After attending her performance, you used government's jet to fly with her home to Nashville the following day. Your date night had no apparent connections to your official duties." The inquiry also questioned a trip to Texas that was first reported by the Wall Street Journal. It says later that weekend, you took the FBI jet to San Angelo, Texas for 4 days, where Republican Party mega donor Bubba Salisbury hosted you at Boondoggle Ranch. I cannot make this shit up, people.
Boondoggle
I mean, I guess
Bubba.
I could, but it would never be that good. By the way, that's a scenic hunting resort that touts itself as the ideal place to, and I quote, waste money or time on unnecessary or questionable projects. That's what Raskin and Kamlager-Dove wrote. The FBI, of course, did not respond to requests for comment. The Judiciary Committee Democrats said Patel's travel on the flights was revealed by public flight logs on social media posts by Patel's girlfriend. The Democrats' letter seeks Patel's travel records from the FBI by December 15th. But as minority party members of the panel, Raskin and Kamlager-Dove do not have the congressional subpoena power to require the records be handed over. They may only request them. We got to win the House back, everyone. I mean, it's so fucking important. We've got to win subpoena power back.
Yeah, they'll still probably not hand anything over, but at least then we can refer them for not, ignoring a subpoena.
Absolutely.
But we would be referring them to Pamela Bondi. So,
Yeah.
Anyway. Next up from Adam Klasfeld at All Rise News, the collapse of the Donald Trump-ordered prosecutions of James Comey and Letitia James shouldn't be viewed in isolation. That's because the dismissals represent the natural endpoint of a once unprecedented phenomenon, the disqualification of a Trump loyalist lawyer unlawfully transformed into an ersatz U.S. attorney. No other president before Trump insisted upon installing loyalists in top prosecutor positions who couldn't be confirmed by the Senate or approved by judges in the district. Not even Trump tried that gambit during his first term, but now it's a routine feature of Trump 2.0. The trend began with Trump's one-time civil lawyer, Alina Habba, who was a first acting U.S. attorney toppled from her perch in the District of New Jersey. Then, failed Nevada Attorney General candidate Sigal Chattah was disqualified from her top federal prosecutor perch, followed by the Central District of California Bill Asaley. Halligan's downfall was more dramatic because she took the Comey and James cases down with her. On Thursday, it will be the Northern District of New York's John Sarkone's time, and there's going to be a hearing examining the legitimacy of his appointment. That's the guy who, like all these other people, was appointed as the deputy assistant U.S. attorney or deputy U.S. attorney and then promoted themselves to be the interim U.S. attorneys.
What?
Yeah. A former Trump campaign lawyer, Sarkone fits in Halligan's mold, an inexperienced loyalist who never previously served as a prosecutor before picking up a separate criminal investigation into the New York Attorney General, whom his boss hates. If it were possible, Sarkone's grand jury probe stands on even more shaky ground. He's investigating whether James violated a criminal civil rights law by bringing a pair of successful lawsuits against Trump's business empire and the National Rifle Association. James sued to quash Sarkone's subpoena on multiple grounds, but the only argument before the court this week is whether Sarkone is illegitimately serving in his position. Every defendant who has made this argument during Trump's second term has prevailed, a record that currently stands at 4-0. And Dana, today, the Third Circuit Court of Appeals upheld Alina Habba's disqualification by a lower court. So this is the first time an appeals court, the second level, has ruled that she would, and it was unanimous with a GW appointee, a Daddy Bush appointee, and an Obama appointee ruled unanimously that she's not fit.
She ain't fit. All right. Speaking of not fit, see, these transitions are fantastic today. This is from the Times. President Trump has set free a private equity executive who had served less than 2 weeks of his 7-year sentence for his role in what prosecutors described as, you ready for this? A $1.6 billion scheme that defrauded thousands of victims. David Gentile, he's 59, a one-time resident of Nassau County, New York, had reported to prison on November 14th, and he was released on Wednesday. That's according to the Bureau of Prisons records and a White House official who was not authorized to discuss the matter. Mr. Gentile and a co-defendant, that's Jeffrey Snyder, they were convicted in August of 2024 of securities and wire fraud charges, and they were sentenced in May. Unlike a pardon, the commutation granted Mr. Gentile will not necessarily erase the penalties that could be associated with his conviction. Okay.
I wonder if it's genteel or gentile. Either way.
Gentile. I know. Either way. I don't know. We'll flip back and forth. Yeah. In court filings, prosecutors said that Mr. Gentile, actually, I like that better, and Mr. Snyder, over several years, used private equity funds controlled by Mr. Gentile's company, GPB Capital, I've heard that before, to defraud 10,000 investors by misrepresenting the performance of the funds and the source of money used to make monthly distribution payments. In a related story from The Guardian, Trump said he will grant a pardon to Juan Orlando Hernandez. That is the former president of Honduras, who is serving a 45-year prison sentence in the U.S. on drug trafficking and weapons charges. Let me just repeat that for those of you that don't understand. We are bombing boats in the Caribbean because supposedly they are trafficking drugs into our country. But the president is now pardoning Juan Orlando Hernandez, who has been charged serving a 45-year prison sentence for drug trafficking and weapons charges in the United States. Mm-hmm. Can't square that circle. You can't. Mm-mm. In March of last year, Hernandez was convicted in U.S. courts of accepting millions of dollars in bribes to protect U.S.-bound cocaine shipments belonging to traffickers he once publicly claimed to combat. Now, speaking during closing arguments at the trial, Assistant U.S. Attorney Jacob Gutwillig said Hernandez had, and I quote, paved a cocaine superhighway to the United States. And Allison, what is a lot of cocaine laced with?
Donald Trump Jr.'s nose?
Yes. Also, fentanyl. Ding, 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 ding. Trump's announcement. Tell her what she's won, Bob. Trump's announcement to pardon Hernandez comes even as the Republican leader casts himself as being tough on combating drug problems. Trump's administration designated multiple drug cartels as, and I quote, foreign terrorist organizations and used claims of war on drugs to justify deadly airstrikes of vessels across the Caribbean and Pacific, just what we covered earlier in the show. These strikes have prompted the United Nations and other humanitarian organizations to condemn the operations as extrajudicial executions. Caroline Leavitt said Monday with a cross around her neck, the people of Honduras have highlighted to Trump how the former President Hernandez was set up. He was set up. This was a clear Biden over prosecution. No, it wasn't. But this prosecution began when? During the first Trump administration. President Hernandez's brother, Tony Hernandez, was indicted in 2018 and convicted in 2019. And key ally, Giovanni Fuentes Ramirez, was indicted in 2020. Guess who was lead prosecutor on both of those cases, Allison? Emil Bovey.
Of course he was.
Yeah.
Of course he was. But it's a Biden auto pen over prosecution.
My God.
It's Biden's fault. Yeah, to go after 6 guys in the Caribbean and then to kill 2 survivors and then do that, murder over 80 more people.
Yeah.
For the terror, for the armed with, drugs that are considered weapons to the imminent threat to the United States. But we're going to let the guy who paved a cocaine superhighway to the United States go free.
Unbelievable.
Okay. All right. I wonder if Junior was like, Dad, that's my connection. Can you please let him know?"
Probably.
By the way, early results in the Honduras general election show that the 2 leading presidential candidates are locked in a technical tie right now, with the Trump-backed guy slightly ahead. So I bet they cheated there too. All right. Whew. We're going to hit pause on the news because we're going to do the good news.
Oh, thank God.
Listener submitted good news after we talked to Ms. Hitt, who wrote the Barbie Land book. But we need some good news in our lives. So if you have any good news, send it to us. dailybeanspod.com, click on contact, and we'll pick up with the news again tomorrow during the Daily Beans. But that's all we have for you today. Everybody stick around. We'll be right back.
After these messages, we'll be right back.
This episode is brought to you by IQBAR, our exclusive snack and hydration sponsor. IQBAR is the better-for-you plant protein-based snack made with brain-boosting nutrients to refuel, nourish, and satisfy hunger without the sugar crash. And right now, IQBAR is offering you an exclusive deal, 20% off all IQBAR products, plus you get free shipping. Just text Daily Beans to 64,000. Finding convenient snacks and drinks that are also healthy has always been a challenge, but IQBAR has solved it all with ease. The Ultimate Sampler Pack gives you the perfect way to explore all their products at once, with 9 IQ bars, 8 IQ Mix sticks, and 4 IQ Joe sticks. Now, everything IQBAR makes is crafted with clean ingredients, completely free of gluten, dairy, soy, GMOs, no artificial sweeteners. It's all amazing. And they pack in nutrients like magnesium, lion's mane, and adaptogens designed to keep you both physically and mentally fit throughout the day. The IQBAR protein bars are an easy swap for a sugary snack. They have more fiber and fewer carbs than the alternatives. IQ Mix hydration sticks give you electrolytes without the sugar while supporting focus and mood. And IQ Joe delivers 200 milligrams of smooth, natural caffeine in an instant coffee form, and it's available in 4 rich flavors that easily outshine brewed coffee. And the variety of flavors is impressive. Mint chocolate chip bars, blueberry pomegranate mixes, toasted hazelnut coffee. Those are just a few of my favorites. And they have seasonal options too, adding surprises along the way. Supported by over 20,000 5-star reviews, IQBAR continues to grow because it works. It's awesome. They're delicious. And for me, I love starting my mornings with IQ Joe, leaning on IQ Mix or an IQ bar to power through a busy afternoon. It's an easy upgrade to my daily routine. And I love easy. And right now, IQBAR is offering our special podcast listeners 20% off all IQBAR products, including that sampler pack. Plus, you get free shipping. So to get your 20% off, text Daily Beans to 64,000. That's Daily Beans, all one word, to 64,000. Text Daily Beans to 64,000. Message and data rates may apply. See terms for details. Hey, everybody, welcome back. I am really excited today. I'm going to be talking to somebody who's written an incredible book called Barbie Land, The Unauthorized History. It comes out December 2nd. She's a journalist in New York. She's an editor and contributor to Drift magazine. And she's reported previously for the Daily Beast and the reboot of Gawker. Please welcome Tarpley Hitt. Hi, Tarpley. How are you?
I'm great. How are you?
I am good. So I chewed through this. You have to know. I didn't know, nor was I aware. Now, I had seen the Barbie movie, but I hadn't been aware of the history of all of the different really interesting characters that were responsible for Barbie. What prompted you to write the book in the first place?
It's just this one toy that will never go away. I remember having a conversation with a friend's father a few years ago, and he was going to the toy store and trying to look for a toy for his grandkid that, was something that he would have played with when he was a kid. And he was like, I couldn't find anything. It's just like the Slinky, the rubber ball, and Barbie. And so, she's just like this Hydra. She keeps coming back. You cut off her head. She comes back even stronger. And so that was kind of on the brain. I grew up at this moment where Barbie was still omnipresent, but not particularly popular. There was a study that was done when I was a kid of middle schoolers who were asked about various cultural products and their feelings about them. And all of them had sort of warm feelings towards most, generic toys, but towards Barbie, they had this like extreme unadulterated rage, kind of cartoon rage because they're children, but they were like, oh yeah, Barbies are for destroying. We break them, we burn them, we, tattoo them. So maybe because of that, I never had a super strong emotional connection with Barbie, even though she was everywhere. And so when the movie came out, it was sort of this, cognitive dissonance of like, there's this massive phenomenon happening. And it can't really be understated just how massive it was. The people were worried that the movie theaters were going to go out of business, and this movie single-handedly brings big people back. And so I was like, what is it about this doll that in so many respects seems like kind of passé, that somehow keeps reinventing itself for, each new generation of kids? And then I started reading up on some of the history, and it's just a parade of hilarious characters.
Right. Oligarchs, autocrats, Nazis. Like, let's talk a little bit about some of these characters that you've uncovered, because there was so much I didn't know that just, you couldn't, like, if you tried to pitch this in a writer's room, they would laugh you out of the room. They're like, no, that can't be real. Well, first of all, talk about the handlers, right? Ruth and Elliot, who saw a doll in Europe named Lily and kind of based Barbie on that, right?
Yeah. So there's a lot of questions around how exactly Ruth Handler first encountered this doll. And I tried to get to, the bottom of it, or if not the bottom of it, then at least a working theory. But Barbie was like very explicitly modeled on, some might say copied from, this German doll that was basically like the Mickey Mouse of Germany. It was, the Vanna White even. It was really a advertising gimmick for a tabloid, the German equivalent of like the New York Post or the Daily Mail, sort of right-leaning, highly sensationalized tabloid run by Axel Springer. And so how Ruth exactly came across this, she denied for 30 years that Barbie had been based on this doll. It only comes out in the mid-'80s that there's any connection to Build Lily, which is the German doll. And she doesn't really address it concretely until her memoir in 1994. And even then, she sort of is a little bit vague. She says she stumbles across this doll while on a vacation in Lucerne. Almost every Build Lily collector or Barbie collector that I've spoken to doesn't totally believe that, just because of the popularity of this doll. This doll was everywhere in Germany and across Europe. And she actually was the star of her own giant movie in 1958. And there was a national competition to find the star of this, who would play this doll, who would bring this doll to life. So it strikes a lot of people as kind of unlikely that Ruth just happened to find this doll on a trip to Switzerland.
Right. This obscure thing that nobody had ever heard of. And, when it was actually wildly popular and came to being, as you talk about in your book, it began as a literal blank spot on a page that they had to fill. And they drew this Bild Lilly, right?
Yeah.
BILD, right? And this was a right-wing pro-Nazi newspaper, I think, if memory serves. And kind of, or at least the person who was the person who put the paper out was somehow associated with that, but definitely right-wing.
Yeah, definitely right-wing. I wouldn't say pro-Nazi because it was basically, illegal to be pro-Nazi in 1952 in Germany. But he definitely had some,
It was like the Daily Mail of Germany.
Indirect tie. Exactly.
So, and that just blew me away. So you mentioned Axel Springer. Let's talk about who that is.
So Axel Springer was basically the Rupert Murdoch of post-war Germany. He grew up in a publisher's family in Germany, and he wanted to create a media empire, which was actually quite easy to do after the war because most of the competition had sort of been bombed out. He had some family money, though the funding exactly of his paper is a little opaque. The Nation at one point in the 80s said he got $7 million from the CIA, which Springer totally denies. But he creates this media empire. He has several magazines, several outlets, but the most popular one and the most popular daily newspaper in Germany in the 50s and 60s, and it still has a very wide readership today, was Bild Zeitung, the Daily Mail of Germany. And his innovation was he understood really early on that TV was going to be a serious threat to print media. And he wanted a paper that could compete with TV, that would be really picture heavy. I mean, Bild Zeitung means picture newspaper. And so this was kind of a passion project for him. He laid it out himself. And like you said, when the first issue goes to print, he notices that there's a blank. And so he immediately commissions some kind of cartoon, and they want it to be, some sort of sexy lady. And so the comic at one of his other papers, Reinhard Bötting, draws this sketch, which later becomes so popular that they keep it on as a daily series, which then becomes the doll, Bild Lilly.
That's just what a weird history. But it gets even weirder.
And one more thing I'll just say about Axel Springer, he was avowed anti-communist. He was, conservative in many ways, and he only became more conservative as the 60s went on. But so he sort of used Bild Lilly as kind of an icon of his pro-German unification, anti-communist political agenda. Yeah.
It's so fascinating that Barbie, who is a political hot potato and has been for decades, is born of politics. I just think that's
exactly
really interesting. Now, you've got these other players in this. You have a guy named Louis Marks, who I think is referred to as like the Henry Ford of the toy industry. And so that guy was brought on board.
Yes. I mean, Louis Marks is a hilarious character. He is basically the first toy titan in the United States. The toy industry in the US kind of developed on the later side because so many of their toys were imported from Germany. So there were, mom and pops and hand craftsmen, but no real like Mattel or Hasbro.
Big toy, right.
No big toy. And so it's only around World War I that the US toy industry starts to organize itself because there's embargoes on German imports. And Louis Marks sort of matures in the midst of that. And his real innovation is realizing that you can just take an old toy and update it a little bit and spin it as something new and then make it for less than the original. So his first big hit, he literally buys the toys from his old boss, makes the exact same toys, completely knocks them off, and says, oh, these are brand new. And they become a huge craze. They make like $1 million. He's a millionaire by 26. So he sort of builds this empire, and he's notorious for kind of knocking off rival products, selling them for less. And, it worked really well for him.
So that makes him perfect for Barbie.
Exactly. So when Barbie hits the scene, he's kind of furious. He had been on the cover of Time magazine a few years earlier as the toy king, and here's this, new startup company sort of edging in on his turf. And so he goes to the German toy makers, the former Nazis who had worked with Axel Springer to manufacture this doll, and licenses the German doll from them and tries to bring that to the States to compete with Barbie, which obviously Mattel is not thrilled about.
And, read about what happens.
Yeah, find out what happens next.
Right.
Yeah.
The spoiler alert. I think we know what ended up happening there. Now, you mentioned a study when you were young in the 90s, but there was also a study done by Mamie and Kenneth Clark. They were partners. They were academics, the first Black woman and Black man to receive psychology doctorates from Columbia University. And they actually did a study too called the doll tests. And can you talk about that and how it impacted, how it was involved in the marketing and creation of Barbie?
Yeah. So the doll tests were a series of studies that Mamie and Kenneth Clark performed in the late 40s and early 50s that were basically blockbusters in academic psychology. The studies themselves, varied. There were about a half dozen of them, but in many of them, they had a series of dolls. And they were identical, except for some were Black and some were white. And Mamie had focused her master's and PhD on when racial consciousness evolved in Black children and how they came to conceive of their race as they were growing up. And she would show school children, some of them as young as 3 years old, these dolls and ask them basic questions like, which doll is the nice doll? Which doll is the clean doll? Which doll do you want? And the initial result that she got, and which replicated across many of the studies that they found, was that these Black children had internalized at this extremely young age that the Black doll was somehow worse, which was obviously extremely disturbing. And so they published these studies, and it becomes this sort of, it's an astounding finding, but also Mamie had worked with this ACLU lawyer while she was working her way through her master's program who knew Thurgood Marshall. And Thurgood Marshall was at that time litigating some of the cases that would go on to be merged into Brown v. Board. And he was looking for expert witnesses that could testify to the fact that segregation had a measurable impact on Black children. And so he brings on the Clarks to testify in court. And here was this study that seemed to show in miniature, exactly the thesis that he was litigating. And they get profiled in Ebony. The White House asks them to write a treatise on racial prejudice. And, it becomes this big thing. It takes a while for the toy industry to actually pay attention to that, even though dolls were literally at the center of both these studies and cited in the Brown v. Board opinion from the Supreme Court, because there had been a lot of attempts to make Black dolls, and a lot of Black doll makers had put Black dolls on the market. But the bigger corporations, which had already become quite concentrated by the 50s, to the extent that they had Black dolls, they were sort of they were not really advertised. They were sort of pushed to the side and often discontinued after 1 or 2 years. But Mattel, to their credit, was sort of the first of the big toy companies to bring Black dolls to market. And they did advertise them, not, as aggressively as some of their other toys, but they did. And yet this does not happen for Barbie. Barbie, you don't see a Black Barbie until 1980. Right.
And there was a Mad Men kind of character in all of this too. Can you talk about that?
Ernest Dichter, hilarious. One of my favorite characters to read about while reporting this. He is this, former psychologist who decides he, has his practice on Sigmund Freud's old street, and he studied with a lot of Freud's proteges. And his big innovation was, let's take Freudian concepts, this idea of the unconscious and secret desires, to the marketplace and will plumb, the psyches of the American public and find out what they really want. And so he developed all these sort of idiosyncratic techniques for trying to figure out what your true desire was. Some of them were like, psychodramas and theatrical productions that people would participate in. Some of them, were these sort of questionnaires that had these probing questions. But he sort of pioneered and popularized the focus group. And he would bring people into this living room where they would talk about specific products and be observed through, a two-way mirror. And, like so many people in this book, for some reason, he basically thought that everyone's desire for any given consumer product was tied up in sex.
Mm-hmm.
So he did a study for Ivory Soap, and he concluded that bathing was the rare occasion where the puritanical American male got to caress himself. And holding a cigarette in your mouth was like sucking on a world gigantic breast. That is his words, not mine. So he, has a very particular mind.
He's the sex sells guy, and he's why Barbie has such big boobs.
Exactly. Well, those she inherited. She comes by those honestly.
But to market a doll to children that is a full-grown woman, I think is pretty fascinating. In all of these interesting ways that this guy was like, no, yeah, we can. That's why Ruth brought him on, right? To make those determinations.
Yeah, I mean, Ruth wanted a doll that was, that looked like an adult woman. She wanted a doll that had breasts, and that was a sort of a hard sell. I mean, originally when Barbie launches at the Toy Fair in 1959, there's not that much interest. A lot of people think parents are not going to buy this porny doll. And so there's some people have said that Mattel made an effort to sort of desexualize Barbie in the transition from Build Lily to Barbie, that they were sort of softening the edges. If you look at the dolls side by side, there's not a ton of differences. I mean, there's some significant differences in their construction, in the way their hair is attached and so on, but they look basically identical. Although, certain collectors who have a sort of encyclopedic knowledge of dolls of different iterations would, fry me for saying that. But to the layman's eye, they're pretty identical. So the degree to which Mattel actually desexualized Barbie is, I'll leave that to readers to decide. But they bring on Ernest Dichter sort of to ask, how do we sell this sort of sexy doll to parents? And he does a study, and his takeaway was basically that if you frame it right, her sex appeal is not a problem, because society in the 50s and now being what they were, there's a material benefit to being an attractive woman. And if you tell American parents that this doll is what will train their child into how to be an attractive woman, to how to groom themselves, and so on, then they will find that to be a valuable quality in the toy.
Yeah. And then, that kind of sort of, I think, sparks some of the feminist problems with the doll as time goes on, and it sort of ebbs and flows. And, then we get Greta Gerwig, who's like, no, listen. And it's just a really fascinating ride. And you mentioned collectors. And when I read about Billy Boy *, who is I guess Andy Warhol muse, but that guy had like 11,000 dolls, and he hung out at Studio 54, and he ended up working for Mattel.
Yeah, he is amazing. I mean, definitely a controversial figure, both in the doll collector community, in the Barbie, extended universe, but just a hilarious individual, one of the many hilarious individuals in Barbie's backstory. But so, yeah, he is, how to describe him? His biography, I'll say, he's taken some liberties with his biography. Mm-hmm. So in some papers, he says, I was born in 1960. In some, he says, I was found drifting in a woven basket down the Nile River and taken in by a cowboy and fortune teller from Staten Island or something like that. And so the years in which he's born are constantly shifting. The places in which he's born are constantly shifting. What we do know is that in his teens, he runs away from home and travels the country in this, I think it was a Thunderbird, I forget, collects all these Barbies en route and winds up in the Village in New York City and becomes sort of a club kid, Studio 54, Warhol muse, but also an avid collector of Barbies. And he is sort of a key figure in situating Barbie in a kind of, in an adult context, in a higher art context, in a fashion context. So in 1986, he restages this like landmark art exhibit. Basically in the 1945 in Paris, all these fashion houses teamed up and they wanted to restore Paris to sort of a capital of glamour and fashion, but there was still not very much material to make beautiful clothes with. So they staged this touring exhibit where they made, Dior gowns and Hermes gowns, but they staged them on dolls because that was the amount of fabric that they had on hand. And so this becomes sort of this famous thing. It's called the Theater of Fashion. And Billy Boy restages it with Barbies in the 80s. And that sort of generates some attention. He has Mattel's permission to do that. And he comes on, he writes the first book about Barbie aimed at a mainstream audience. And then he actually collaborates with Mattel on several Barbies of his own. Then, of course, there, like so many relationships with Mattel, that soured in legal conflicts.
Lots of souring and legal conflicts, and you get into that a lot in the books, especially with the handlers and Jill Barad, who started out as a model and worked there, but then ended up leaving, probably not on the best terms. But two other things that really stood out to me in this book that I really wanted to ask you about was the Barbie Liberation Organization. This is in the 90s, and they did sort of this art piece Project Mayhem stunt with Barbies and like G.I. Joes. Can you talk about that? Because I had never heard of this. And I was like 18, 19, 20 in those years. And I thought I might have heard of something like that, but this is the first I've heard of it.
Oh, yeah. Okay. So one of Jill Barad, who was the CEO of Mattel, or at that time she was running the Barbie department, but she later became CEO. One of the big releases in 1992 is this Barbie that can speak. And so she says a variety of sentences, like, let's go to the mall, or I'd love to see a movie. But this generates a lot of flack because one of the sentences she says is, math class is tough, and this becomes like, there's a Simpsons episode, I don't know if you remember Malibu Stacy, sort of based on this episode, but this becomes this, sort of mini scandal. A bunch of female academics are rightly pretty pissed off and are like, we're actually totally good at math. And so this guy, this college student and prankster who's sort of, in the ad busters type of anti-corporate guerrilla art scene, sees this and comes up with this idea to steal. Well, it's not stealing. He calls it shop giving. But so he goes into say a toy store, and he buys a couple Barbies, a G.I. Joe. He bought this one like farting doll called Seymour Butts. And they all have these sort of digital chips in their chest cavities that have these recorded sentences on them. He takes them back to his workshop, solders them off, swaps the chips, and then puts them back in the box so that they're perfectly, unopened looking, and brings them back to the store and slips them back onto the shelves. And so then people who buy them will get a Barbie and it will say, death to the enemy, or, like, so all these Barbies are saying, G.I. Joe lines or Seymour Butts lines, farting up a storm, and then
Barbie saying "Dead men tell no lies," and G.I. Joe saying "Let's plan our dream wedding." Yeah,
exactly.
Math is tough,
and so he recruits a lot of people to help him do this. They're all over the country. They do several hundred of these doll surgeries, And then Christmas rolls around and kids start getting presents where their G.I. Joe is saying, let's go to the mall. And so then they release the Barbie Liberation Organization, which is obviously a reference to the PLO, puts out a statement claiming responsibility for the stunt. And it's, shot like a hostage video. The one talking Barbie is sort of like above in front of, camo or whatever, and saying we're the Barbie Liberation Organization. And now the media reacts, as the media does, with just total hysteria. Somebody in the press calls it like terrorist acts against children. Meanwhile, all of this had been funded with an art grant from New York State. So
this is the kind of good trouble I get behind. I don't know why. Of course, the media is like, oh my gosh, this is terrorism. But reading about that was amazing. And then finally, there's so much in here, everybody. You have to get this book. It's really incredible. It would be great for holiday gifts, by the way, with a Barbie.
Hear, hear.
But the story about, I didn't know this, but Mattel sued RCA Records over, I'm a Barbie girl. Remember that song by Aqua? And I had no idea about this, but there's this character who was a judge on the Ninth Circuit named Alex Kaczynski. And I had no idea about this, but it's so much more than just a straightforward lawsuit.
Yes. Alex Kaczynski is really one of the great legal characters in the American judicial system. So he is a Reagan appointee who is like conservative in an idiosyncratic way. I would say he leans more, he's gotten more conservative over time, but he leans more libertarian. And, for example, he has a strong feeling about the death penalty, which is that he thinks it's horrible and that if it's going to be done, it should be, we should bring back firing squads and guillotines so that the legal system can't hide behind these sort of sanitized ways of putting people to death. And, there's a lot of opinions that people who fall on sort of the more progressive side of the political spectrum, like myself, and I assume many listeners of this podcast, would disagree with his opinions. But he's also someone who, people say Scalia was a good writer and a funny writer, and I don't find that to always be the case. Alex Kaczynski is a very funny writer. He, in one of his opinions where he's deciding a case about this Las Vegas theater owner who tried to establish a sort of monopoly over the Vegas theater market, he covertly slipped the names of more than 200 movies into his opinion. So if you read it, it's kind of stilted. And that's because he's like, it was an impossible mission. It was a mission impossible in the heat of this guy is clueless, Anyway, he becomes the judge of this Aqua case, and he becomes sort of a recurring character in Mattel's prolific legal career
history, right? And I'm not. Do you want to give away the line? I don't know. Maybe we should just. It's such a good line that he said when his panel sided against Barbie. I don't know if we want to leave it for the readers to find themselves, but it's you talk about him being a pretty funny writer. That line just stood out. I laughed for like a good 5 minutes when I read what he wrote to the Barbie people.
Since he has, I'll say it, since the line is, I think, one of his more famous, and he has so many good ones. He, in the Aqua case, when he, puts out his opinion on appeal, he writes, "The parties are advised to chill."
Yeah.
And I'll just say that Mattel did not chill.
No, they did not. No, they didn't. And you can read up on what happens after that. And like this just incredible in-depth history of Barbie. It's so very fascinating. I'm so glad that you wrote this and took the time to do it.
Thank you.
And to do all this research, because there was just so much that I learned. It's called Barbie Land, The Unauthorized History. It comes out December 2nd. You know me. I like everyone to go to their local independent bookstore and order copies. Order like 10 copies and put them out in your little free libraries around town and give them as holiday gifts. But it's so well done. I really appreciate all the work that you poured into this book, because I know it was a lot. I could tell by reading it, the amount of research that went into it. So I really appreciate it.
Thank you. I really appreciate that.
You're like, yeah, that was a lot of work. So tell everyone where they can find and follow you and get information about future stuff that's coming out and pieces that you're working on.
Oh, yeah. I mean, you can follow me on Twitter, which I'm still on, as well as Blue Sky. On Twitter, I'm Tarpley Hitt, and on Blue Sky, I'm also Tarpley Hitt. And you can subscribe to the Drift magazine, which, is a great magazine. And if any of you are in New York, I'll be speaking at McNally Jackson Seaport on December 3rd with 2 of my Drift colleagues. So that should be fun.
Very cool. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. Appreciate your time. Again, everybody, the book is called Barbie Land, The Unauthorized History. Go grab your copy now. And I appreciate you joining us today. Tarpley Hitt, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Everybody stick around. We'll be right back with the good news. Hey, everybody, if you're planting now or just plotting for later, Fast Growing Trees makes the yard in your head come to life. They ship high-quality plants to your door, and they're America's largest online nursery. It's so convenient. They have more than 1,600 options. They've been delivering since 2005, so they know what they're doing. And you can scroll and find anything you need, from fruit trees and privacy trees to flowering shrubs and bushes and more. Ordering is easy. You buy online and your plants arrive in just a couple of days, which also makes them a smart and easy gift for the holidays. Their Alive and Thrive guarantee means your order shows up healthy and ready to settle in. And every plant is grown here in the U.S. and cared for by experts before it ships. So when the box lands on your porch, you are already halfway to your dream yard. For my project, I had my guacamole garden. I got a Meyer lemon tree and a lime tree and then 2 avocado trees. The original quote I received from the landscaper sent me straight to fastgrowingtrees.com. And I did it myself, and I saved around 90% of the cost. No messy trunk, no dirt in my trunk, no wasted Saturday, no being limited by an in-store selection. Instead, I unboxed strong and amazing well-rooted plants with clear instructions, too. And I spoke with a Fast Growing Trees plant expert about the spacing and watering. They were the ones who told me that I needed a second avocado tree buddy for my first avocado tree because they grow better together. So they have everything you need to know. And planting took an afternoon, and I already have an incredible little guacamole garden up and running. It's delicious and amazing. So this season, they have the best deals for your yard, including up to half off tons of plants and other deals. And listeners to our show, you get 15% off your next purchase when using the code DailyBeans at checkout. That is 15% off your next purchase at fastgrowingtrees.com using the code DailyBeans at checkout. Now is the perfect time to plant. Use code DailyBeans to save today. The offer is valid for a limited time. Terms and conditions may apply. Check out the link in the show notes to support the Daily Beans. Everybody, welcome back. It's time for the good news.
Good news, everyone. Then good news, everyone.
Good news. And if you have any good news submissions, anything good that's happened to you, big or small, recent or in the distant past, we want to hear from you. We want to share in your good news. We could all use the little microdose of hope and happiness. Send it to us. You can also give a shout out to someone that you love, like a spouse or a kid or a family member or yourself, because you love yourself and we'd like to hear about the amazing things you're doing. Maybe a shout out to a government program that's helped you or a loved one so we can get it all on the record for posterity, how amazing and incredible government programs are. If you have a Republican government program that's helped you out, feel free to send it in, but I can't really think of any, except maybe EMTALA from the 80s. So if you've gone to the emergency room and were treated despite not having insurance, hey, there you go. We also would like your good trouble ideas, so send those to us. And all you got to do to get your submission read on the air is pay your pod pet tariff, which means attach a photo of your pet. If you want us to guess the breeds in your shelter pup, we can try. We're not very good at it, but we like to try anyway. If you don't have a pet, send an adoptable pet in your area. If you don't have an adoptable pet in your area, send a bird watching photo, which can be an actual bird, or you and your family and friends flipping the bird to Trump buildings. If you don't have that, just grab a random photo of an animal on the internet. We accept all animals. And then, of course, humans. You have baby pictures, awkward family photos, pictures of rallies, maybe some overpass protest signs you've seen. Like, show us photos of what you're making and creating. You growing something in a garden? You got some great botanical photos? Anything at all. Seriously, any picture will work. Send it to us, dailybeanspod.com, and click on contact. First up today is our good trouble. And our good trouble comes from our good friend, Phil Williams, the nosiest bitch in Nashville. This is an excerpt from a News Channel 5 report. Jon Minadeo courts children in video chat apps, berating children of color, encouraging white kids to arm themselves for race war. Jon Minadeo is a neo-Nazi on a mission to meet America's children in online video chats and convince them to hate. News Channel 5 Investigates reviewed hours of online videos that reveal how, when Minadeo encounters children of color, he tries to persuade them to hate themselves, often brandishing an assault weapon and warning them to expect to be treated violently. We're going to have a link to Phil Williams' story in the show notes. And Phil Williams' Blue Sky post about this is also going to be linked there. And he said, if anyone wants to respond to neo-Nazi Jon Minadeo targeting children, see the posts below. You too can report. It's goyimtv.st and gtvflyers.st. These are two websites. You can report them for hate speech, live streaming video of children without consent, and urging kids to buy guns and to prepare to kill non-white people. So we'll have all that information to report these websites in the show notes, and you can read more about Jon Minadeo and his Goyim Defense League at George Washington University's website. We'll include a link to that as well. So thanks, Phil Williams, for your dogged reporting on this neo-Nazi trying to recruit children and scare the shit out of kids on the internet. That's our good trouble today, and I appreciate all the work that Phil Williams does.
Absolutely. And for those of you that know, and I think you probably do because we're sort of that community, today is Giving Tuesday, if you're listening to this on Tuesday morning. And so find an organization that makes you happy if you can do that. And if you're in a place where you want to donate, there's a lot of places that can be vetted. I'm just going to give a shout out to one of the organizations that I work with so much over the year. Often they take about 20 or so of my weekends a year from you, but it's the Human Rights Campaign. And what we've done is we have created a special link for the Daily Beans listeners that if you click on it, it'll be in the show notes. Any donation that you can make is going to help the Human Rights Campaign over this next year. They have so much work planned with their foundational work, their nonprofit stuff. They're going to get boots on the ground, get people out to vote, get our stories out there. They're doing so much so that we are just combating as much misinformation about the LGBTQ community as we can. So we have a little moment to show them how much the Daily Beans supports them and what a splash we can make. So if for Giving Tuesday, you want to join me in supporting the Human Rights Campaign, there'll be a link in the show notes, and it's just for us. So I appreciate you all very much. That's it.
Awesome. Yeah. Don't they also do incredible work tracking which corporations and businesses have robust diversity, equity, and inclusion programs?
Oh, yes, they do. It's called the Equality Index, and they send this out to organizations. And it's amazing, even with this anti-DEI bullshit and the fear-mongering from the administration, how many organizations and corporations have not backed down and have continued to support nonprofit work and LGBTQ organizations like the Human Rights Campaign, like Lambda Legal, a lot of them. So if you do want to know who those companies are, it's called the Corporate Equality Index. You can go in and search them to see where you want to put your money the rest of the year. They have so many tools on their website that you can look at to really vet these things. So
that's amazing.
It's an opportunity. And for those of you that can't give, you are doing so much anyway. So just know that you've done something good today for Giving Tuesday. It doesn't have to be monetary. It doesn't.
Nope. Thank you so much, Dana. Appreciate you. And appreciate the HRC. All right. First of all, we've got a submission from Anonymous here. There's no pronouns given. And it says, I love the picture I'm already in love with. It says, hi, Beanie Babes. I want to share my Christmas cards this year before I send them out. Sneak peek. I paint all of my cards.
Wow.
Because I like to make everything more complicated than it needs to be. These are watercolor. And I want to say, if you're on the fence about sending cards this year, please send them. Any old card is fine. Everyone likes getting mail that's not a bill or an advertisement. And it's a nice way to tell people you're thinking of them. Look at these beautiful cardinals that she painted.
They're gorgeous.
Or they painted. Amazing. Fantastic. Thank you for that submission.
Yeah, this is awesome. Wow. All right. This is from another anonymous person, pronouns she and her. Hello, everyone. This is a shout out to Patagonia. Oh my God. I'm so glad you brought this up. I was going to ask if we could do this in our good trouble too. Oh my God. Anonymous, whoever you are. Thank you. This is a shout out to Patagonia. Now, who's having a fundraiser for 8 outdoor nonprofits. If you don't know who Patagonia is, and this is just a break from the submission, Patagonia is a drag queen that helped hang that trans flag in El Capitan with SJ. SJ got fired because SJ was a park worker, a federal worker. Patagonia helped. And this, I'm telling you, Patagonia, if you don't follow them on social media, you're missing out. Anyway, Anonymous, we shall continue. She's going to walk 100 miles, starting in Point Reyes National Seashore and ending up in San Francisco. Now, what you don't have in this is she's doing it in drag.
Yeah.
The entire 100 miles in drag.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So Anonymous says, my daughter had the good fortune to see Patagonia while out hiking yesterday. And our local news posted her video. I feel pretty happy knowing that she's somewhere around here walking and making good trouble. Oh my God. We're going to have a link in the show notes. So this can also be part of your Tuesday giving or any time before. So Patagonia is hiking, and then their last show is in San Francisco on Saturday night. I think it's sold out, but until then, I think they're on mile 23 today, and they're hiking all the way to San Francisco for their next show. And so we'll have a link to this in the show notes too. But if you don't follow Patagonia, Pattigonia, Patagonia on Instagram, you should do it immediately, if not sooner.
Yeah. And look at these incredible photos. Oh, amazing, amazing, amazing. And they're you're right. They're hiking the whole 100 miles in drag, in full drag.
It's amazing. Incredible. Incredible. Also, Patagonia put up a video making fun of Pete Hegseth because Patty is very strong. And I'm not saying this verbatim, but Patagonia was basically like, Pete Hegseth, this is how you do a real pull-up, and I'm doing it with my balls tucked inside me.
Yeah. Yeah. Yep. I love that. And look, there's a pod pet photo too. There's a kitty sleeping in the sun. Thank you so much, Anonymous. Really appreciate that. All right, next up from Anne, pronouns she and her. On November 23rd, in a small neighborhood in San Francisco, 13 determined women and one man of all ages, including 4 octogenarians and one person using a walking assist device, took to the streets with heartfelt signs describing the ways women are being specifically harmed by the present autocratic Washington, D.C. regime. It was the first lament walk for lost justice for women in the country. Silent, ceremonial, sober, the walkers proceeded down 2 busy streets, standing occasionally to face oncoming traffic and pedestrians to declare their empathy with women. Women are the poorest of the poor and suffer the most from the use of food and health as political cudgels to send women back to the home, pregnant and once more pushed into a role of serving patriarchal men. The sign carried by the final walker said, "We are not going back." Described and viewed here, including news coverage by ABC TV Channel 7. We're going to have a link in the show notes to that walk. And thank you for sending that. There's a couple of great flyers here. Women's fundamental rights threatened by wannabe king and court jesters. And thank you for sending that and shedding some light on this great protest.
Yeah, this is awesome. I am loving the good news today. All right, this is from Elliot, pronouns they, them. Yikes, first time I said or wrote that out loud.
Oh,
Elliot, welcome to your authentic life. Says, hey, hi, DG and AG. I hope you can give a shout out to the nurses at UCSD. I've just returned to Portland, Oregon after visiting my husband of 26 years, who is down there battling a tough one. And it looks like the big C will exact another good man. And especially heartfelt thanks to Sabrina, a nurse there who has made PR hubs so happy and fulfilled. And I swear I can't even think how great a person in spirit she is. And all of them are. To be so loving and real. I mean, real people who fucking care. I miss him, but he's in the best care there. And though I would love to be with him 24/7, I cannot right now. But knowing that people as stellar as she are near him makes me kind of okay with all the leukemia BS. P.S. We hate this disease. Sucks monkey balls. For my pod pet tags, please see first Sonny, who had his pic snapped on a lark. There happened to be a photographer at the local pet store, and we thought, hey, let's see what we can get. Sonny frustrated the photographer, squirming and just being an all-out dick the whole time. But then, the very last photo, he took this, which looks like he posed for a passport photo. He was such a good boy, but just to me, I don't know why. And then our little, we don't know, insert dog breed, Gretel, named so because she stamped her foot at us like the youngest Von Trapp did in The Sound of Music. She recently passed, and I just hope she's happy in doggy heaven. Actually, when she was here, she taught me so many things. She elevated laziness to an art. I would bring her a treat, and it sat a few inches from her face. She would extend her tongue without lifting her head and convey the treat into her mouth, barely chew it, and gulp it down and fall back to sleep. She inspired me. Anyway, I love you both. I also love Mr. Fugelsang. Although I cannot miss a day, I feel like I haven't showered unless I get my beans. Thank you, and love from the Pacific Northwest.
Oh, look at these puppers.
They're very sweet.
What, you got a min pin and a dachshund, maybe?
Sure looks like it. And look how old that baby was.
Yeah, Doxy. Oh, sweet, sweet honeys. I love seeing your dogs. Yeah, that first photo looks like a painting, I gotta say. Thank you so much for that, Elliot. All right, next up from Anonymous. What are your favorite LGBTQ organizations for donations? I know about the Trevor Project and SAGE. Are there others? Don't need this on the air. Couldn't figure out how else to ask. Listen to you all the time. Love the show. Pick for tax 2020 pick of the litter where I got my puppy. She's in there somewhere. The second pick is older, 20 years ago. Agility pick of my insert breed name here, Puffin, who love to jump and run with maximum joy. Look at these little babies.
Wow. I love that this came up on the air. I know you said it didn't need to be, but like we said, it's Giving Tuesday. We've got the Trevor Project, SAGE. I mentioned the Human Rights Campaign. You've got Lambda Legal. God, there's so many. Got the Child Rescue.
We're going to be at SIGB this weekend.
Yep. Next Monday, Allison's going to join me for a gala in New York for SIGB. It's the Stonewall Inn Initiative gives back. It raises money for safe spaces for LGBTQ people to be in places that are normally not safe spaces, like sporting arenas. You got people like the Crypto Arena coming on and getting trained and making a promise to protect the LGBTQ community within their walls. It's a pretty extraordinary organization as well. If you go to my website, which is danagoldberg.com, there's a nonprofit page. And I can say all of these are vetted. There's about 7 of them on there. You're welcome to click on those and research the organizations and donate there as well. These are just about a handful of the nonprofits I've worked with, but there are 7 of the ones I really do enjoy.
Awesome. Oh my goodness. Look at this. I think it's a bull terrier.
It looks like the Target dog.
Yep. Bull terrier. Yep. Oh, so cute. Puffin. Oh, thank you for that. And man, Giving Tuesday. I should have known. I should have known that our listeners would be all about it and just incredible and so giving. And
I just got word, which is super fun. The HRC made a special page and they made a $10,000 goal. So we even have a goal to break if we want to with the Daily Beans listeners for Giving Tuesday. If you want to participate in the Giving for the Human Rights Campaign, and you know I do a ton of work with them, we have the link in the show notes. It is specifically targeted to the Daily Beans, so they're going to know exactly where these donations come from, and we'll be able to see if we can break that $10,000 goal with all of the people listening.
I bet we can do it. I bet if everybody clicks on that link in the show notes and gives to the Human Rights Campaign, I bet we can reach 10,000. I bet we can do it in a day.
I think we can do it too. I really do. You all always talk about how much you appreciate the work I do. And so if any of you want to join me in that fight for Giving Tuesday, let's do it. Let's show the Human Rights Campaign how much the Daily Beans, one, supports them, but how much power we have, which would be awesome. And like you said, if now's not a good time to donate, totally understand. But for those of you that can, you're like, where do I want to put my money? This is where you put it.
Wonderful. I hope everybody has an incredible Giving Tuesday. And good luck. Break a leg to the Democrat in the 7th District of Tennessee tonight, Afton Ben. And thank you all so much for your good news submissions. Please send them to us if you have good news or good trouble. dailybeanspod.com and click on contact. We'll be back in your ears tomorrow. And everybody, thanks for watching the first episode ever of the Beans Talk video podcast. You can watch it over at the MSW Media YouTube channel. We'll see you there. Until then, please take care of yourselves, take care of each other, take care of the planet, take care of your mental health, and take care of your family. I've been AG.
I've been DG.
And them's the Beans.
The Daily Beans is written and executive produced by Allison Gill with additional research and reporting by Dana Goldberg. Sound design and editing is by Desiree McFarlane. with art and web design by Joel Reeder with Moxie Design Studios. Music for The Daily Beans is written and performed by They Might Be Giants, and the show is a proud member of the MSW Media Network, a collection of creator-owned podcasts dedicated to news, politics, and justice. For more information, please visit mswmedia.com.
MSW Media.